Welcome back, my friends. Tuesday, June 11th, 2019, 10:37 p.m. And we got a lot to pack into this video, and we're going to start right here with our Soho imagery of the sun. Once again, this white circle represents the sun. This disc here is an actual physical disc being held out by an arm by the piece of equipment from the satellite that is constantly facing the sun for these exact reasons. And sometimes you get some of these beautiful shots of meteors, guys. These are actual meteors that pass the sun, usually during times where we're expecting meteor showers or trails of certain things. There's a rumor out there that the 2019, I believe, JR comet or asteroid has left behind a debris field that we are still currently moving through. Not that it's going to affect Earth particularly, but when we watch these sun cams, we can sometimes get a quick glimpse of multiple of these things shooting either in front or past the sun, and you can see how hard it is to catch these sometimes. Like, you've moved back one frame and they're gone. One frame and boom, there they are again. Just like that. So if I were to back this up a bit and just hit play, you get an idea of how quickly these things come and go. You could barely recognize them unless you catch them in a freeze frame. And right about there. Okay, so you saw it there, and it's one frame. They do about a frame every 3 to 4 minutes. You'll get about a day and a half out of these, but that was an amazing image. And the last time I saw one like that, that I've seen, there could have been more, was back in 2017, I believe. I caught this image on the other Soho camera, which is a little far back. It gives you more of a bigger vision of where the sun is and the surrounding areas. Again, this disc and this arm you see is actually a physical piece of equipment that's holding this disc in front of the sun, because if this was not here, we would not be able to see any of this stuff. The sun is so bright it would bleed out all this stuff. But yes, I caught this image in 2017 during the Perseid meteor shower. This was on August 12th, I believe. Yeah, August 12th, 2017. And then we caught this one. Actually, I pulled up a picture so I don't have to keep going back and forth to that part. Let me pull that picture up really quick for you guys. And here we go. This was captured on the 10th, June 10th. This was basically yesterday at 6 UTC time. That's usually how they measure the time with these. The thing is when you go to the other camera, which is the one I showed you from my previous video in 2017, the reason that you don't really see it much on this camera is because when you get to that 6 o'clock mark, 3, 4, you can see the time right down here, it doesn't capture that exact 6 o'clock. It skips to 6:06. So we had just missed what could have been another vision of this type of picture, but because it goes, these two cameras are out of sync. What I mean by that is this one is up close to the sun, and this one backs out a little bit, and they are on different times. So we get the 6 o'clock mark on this one, but on this one it's 6 minutes ahead of time. So we didn't quite capture that wide view of all those meteors coming in, but we're certainly in the path of a debris field, that's for sure. There's been a lot of reports of fireballs in the sky. I've even seen a couple. That's why I bought my dash cam for my truck, so for when that might occur during the time while I'm driving, I have some footage to show you guys. But I figured this was a good start to a video with a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. And now we're going to move on to something else. Let's check this out. We are on day number 3 or 4 with Arizona and Southern California breaking 100 degrees. It's been sweltering hot down in this area, and that's not all that's going on in this area. We're having quite a big deal with earthquakes in this area. We're going to get into that too. You could see the heat advisory warnings going on in Southern California and in Arizona here. You could scroll down. As always, you match the color to the color you see here, and you get an idea of what's going on county by county. So, with that said, latest earthquakes. Now, once this loads, there it goes. We've had a significant uptick in the last 7 days of earthquakes in Southern California. All of these earthquakes you see here have been within the last 7 days, and even scientists and people that usually tend to downplay things of this nature are pretty concerned about this. In fact, some of these earthquakes are causing oil to rise out of the ground in Southern California near LA. I don't have much as far as pictures or visuals for that. That takes a little more work for me to make sure I'm allowed to use the pictures. But this site right here shows you that just in the last 7 days we've had some swarms going on, and that's not the only area. We had a pretty significant swarm go on towards the central into the Nevada area. This was also within the last 7 days. So a lot of different seismic activity going on in the California area, Nevada. Just the entire southern west basically is just blowing up with earthquakes lately. A lot of videos out there on it, a lot more detail on it, but of course I'm going to report it to you guys. Again, this has been the last 7 days, all magnitudes, and that's a lot of quakes, guys, and especially in Southern California. We don't usually see that amount in this short period of time. So you're going to see a lot of articles about there about the big one coming and all these plans about how to have a plan to evacuate and, you know, certain things to tie down in your homes. Not to mention we had a swarm in the Oklahoma area. This was also within the last 7 days. And this is leading me to be concerned about the New Madrid fault line, which is right around this area. So, I mean, some people are expecting the big one to happen in the West Coast, and then there's others that are very confident that the big one's going to come in this area. So, your guess is as good as mine. We still have this 4.0 Lake Erie / Ohio earthquake we dealt with that was actually on a salt flat, believe it or not. There was some information out there that this took place within the lake on a salt flat. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with why that quake happened. Again, there are other channels out there that are very, very in depth with the earthquake situations and how they work. And, you know, I don't know, guys. This is just stuff you don't see a lot of. So I just wanted to get that out there. A little bit of good news with this video. It's been a full 2 days since we've had a tornado warning, which is good. After a good 14 days of touchdown tornadoes between Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois. I mean, you name it. Pennsylvania, New York. We had tornadoes everywhere for a good 2 weeks straight. That seems to be coming to an end, although the season is not over yet. I'm not saying that we have nothing that is still to come, but a little bit of relief is good news in my book. So with that said, let's move on to some of the U.S. weather we're going to talk about, and then we're going to talk about a cyclone that is certainly going to affect India. We've been talking about India a little bit with their massive heat waves going on, reaching almost 130 degrees in some areas of central India. But we spoke briefly last night during the live stream about two systems moving together that are going to certainly affect the Northeast in the coming days. And when I mean coming days, more than likely the 12th and the 11th. Now, we can see that this system up here is already packing lightning, lots of energy. We got a lot of energy down in the Gulf and in Florida. Florida's been getting some pretty significant storms lately. And then we have, of course, our flow that comes through the Baja region of Mexico and then into the Gulf and then affects Texas. And we usually get this ground zero area. I always say it, this ground zero area is where these systems always meet, and then they tend to form and move up into the Northeast. So we're going to take a look at that. This front here is the one that just passed us. We explained that last night in the live stream. This high pressure came in and kind of bowed it outwards, and we can kiss this one goodbye because it's now finally out into the Atlantic. The last part of it was a pretty torrential downpour on Maine, but that is coming to a close soon too. But This high pressure is what's keeping the weather pretty decent right now in the Northeast, but will shortly come to an end because of this. Like we talked about, these two systems, you can see it right here, the Florida system and then the system coming in from the west being pushed by a high pressure system. Again, we can go back and look at, where is it? Here we go. Again, high pressure system right here is separating these two systems. Low pressure down here, low pressure here, high pressure here, pushing and bowing out that system that just came through the Northeast. Now there's high pressure back here pushing this system into the area of the Great Lakes and into Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, you name it, all of these states, Ohio, Michigan, all going to be involved in this situation. So with that said, again, here is that high pressure system pushing this moisture forward. Again, the lightning chart showing the front of that system, high pressure back here. And then as we move forward, this is what happens. Here we go. In the coming days, this is the 13th. So by the 13th, like I said, the 12th and the 13th, we're going to start seeing a connection here. Low pressure in between the two systems here. High pressure has moved out into the Atlantic, and now this high pressure system is what's forcing all of this stuff this way. High pressure here, it's going to pin it along the Northeast, and we're going to see a counterclockwise spin here, bringing some severe weather to the Northeast. As far as detailed severe weather, that's going to have to wait for another day or two. You could see here by the 13th, we have a nice strip of severe weather moving right through basically central Pennsylvania through northeast PA, which is where I'm at. The low pressure system is up by the Great Lakes, so that's counterclockwise spinning while there's upflow coming from the Bahamas. Warm air, warm moisture, and that's what causes these storms to be a lot stronger than, let's say, the winter or fall. But we can clearly see, and this was the point I was trying to make last night, is that these systems do not move on their own. They are pushed and pulled by high pressure systems, by the jet stream, all sorts of things. So there was a let go in the pressure in the Atlantic Ocean, which is allowing this to be pushed out. High pressure here pushing this out, but then again, the high pressure is pushing this inward to the east while allowing the southern Caribbean, the Gulf moisture, and anything near the Bahamas and Florida. Florida, again, has been getting hammered with storms lately. A lot of lightning going on, actually. I was reading Craig Setzer's Twitter page. Great guy, great meteorologist, TV meteorologist. Does a great job in Florida keeping their people warmed about storms. But just check out how these things merge together as we enter 12th, 13th, and 14th. So here we go. There's the 12th. Now we're into the 13th, and you begin to see that rotation right there. That's the important part. When you see the low pressure pop up with a high pressure on either side, you can expect that this is going to get pinched right in between here. So high pressure is a force, high pressure here is a force, and then the low pressures are what are moved by these high pressure bubbles you see. So as we move forward, you can see the high pressure dips underneath, which will push this up into the Northeast. We have a little bit of a let loose in the Atlantic Ocean. You can still see some of the lines from the high pressure, which is going to pin it against the Northeast. So now we're at the 13th. We're going to be moving into the 14th now. So we could be looking at a good solid 3 days of rain in the Northeast with some severe situations because of it. Anytime you see the barometric pressure drop below 1,000, you can assume that we could get some pretty hefty storms in the area. As far as tornadoes go, I don't see that being much of an issue unless this part right here. Pennsylvania's been definitely above average with tornadoes this year. We may see a warning or two out of this. I don't want to make any sort of predictions and scare people with that, but as the days go on, we will look at this more in depth, more detail to keep everyone warned about it. But this is stretching all the way down from basically, you can put South Carolina in this as well. I mean, we can back up one frame and South Carolina is covered as that weather is moving over Florida. It's being pulled into the warmer waters here, and then it just starts wrapping around due to the low pressure system. Again, the northern hemisphere counterclockwise spin. That's how it always works, especially with the nor'easters. This doesn't look like it's going to be a nor'easter, but it's certainly going to bring a lot of rain to the northeast. This is going to include, now I'm naming these states because a lot of people ask why I didn't name a certain state, or why I didn't focus on certain areas. Basically, what you got to understand is there's so many small states grouped in the Northeast. We got Massachusetts, Rhode Island, the extension of New York as Long Island, New Jersey, Chesapeake Bay, and then we got Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Pennsylvania, you name it. All these Northeast states, basically you're dealing with the same situation unless you get one of those cells, like I said here, in eastern, I would call this eastern Pennsylvania with the low pressure here. So the low pressure is spinning counterclockwise, drawing the moisture up. So a lot of this is going to be coming up from the north rather than what we usually see. It comes down this way and then out into the ocean. So that's all due to these high pressures. This high pressure is very low, so it's going to have a tendency to push this stuff upwards rather than out. The next system rolling through is a different story. The high pressure shoots it straight across the U.S., and we've talked about that before with the I-70 corridor. So I'm not going to try to get into too much of that detail yet because I want to try to save these clips for when we need to worry about them. But right now, this is the main situation going on in the U.S. We need to keep an eye out for this, guys. There could be flooding potentially with this, a lot of wind, a lot of rain. With this situation here in Pennsylvania, don't be surprised if you see hail. There's a little bit of severe weather up here above the Great Lakes. I'm not too sure if that's going to stay like that, but the low pressure system is where you want to keep your focus on, because that is basically the central area of what's controlling everything else that's going around it. And then when you have all these other atmospheric conditions and things of that nature lined up the right way, you have moisture being pulled up this way, you have moisture being pulled in through the Gulf over Florida, which is why they're dealing with that situation with those thunderstorms and the lightning and all that stuff. In fact, you could see it here. Florida does have storms going on as we speak. Pretty significant cell right here on the border of Georgia and South Carolina, sticking out into the ocean a little bit. A lot of live lightning going on there. And then once again, this is the system that will meet up with this system. Again, this is going to come up this way. This one's going to swoop up this way. And then we're going to have that low pressure system right over the Great Lakes. And it's going to just drench all these states up here for at least 2 to 3 days. So we got to prepare for that. It's going to be soggy. It's going to be rainy. Hopefully the temperatures will bring some relief and we can deal with the rain. It won't be cold. I haven't really looked into the temperatures yet because they change so drastically sometimes when these storms roll in. I'm sure a lot of you are aware when you're watching a storm front come in, you get that real cool wind that comes in quick, and then boom, you're hit with a storm. It gets cold for a little bit, it rains, it dries up, and then it's very humid and hot. And we're starting to enter those months now. So this is a warning out to the Northeast. We are going to be seeing some severe weather in the coming days. And by the 14th, you could still see in the entire state of Pennsylvania, West Virginia. We could even go to the west over the Great Lakes. We got every single Northeast state covered in rain and some severe weather moving up into Vermont, New Hampshire, just above Massachusetts. That could even pass through Massachusetts. Sometimes these charts change on an hourly basis. So I give you the information I have at the time. By the time we reach the 14th, things seem to start to clean up. A little bit of rain here in New York and Vermont and New Hampshire by the 14th. And then as we move into the 15th, that's when we're going to have to start worrying about our next system, which I will touch on briefly. We got a high pressure system here, which will keep weather out of this area, which is why you're going to see this system particularly shoot across the state rather than two systems meeting up at once. And you can see that here as it kind of just shoots right across the middle of the country possibly bringing some severe weather right across the Great Lakes. That would include Watertown and Buffalo and these areas of western New York. We'll also talk about Oklahoma and Texas as they will be involved with this too. Tornado season is not over, guys. We very well may have another situation in the coming weeks where we have to deal with tornadoes, and you can kind of see it brewing right here. But now we're getting into the 17th. Don't want to go much past that date because after that it's a coin toss basically when it comes to anything after 5 days. But once again, just to recap this situation that is about to happen in the Northeast over the next couple days, we got the system up in the north, or the central area of the country that came from the west. We got the lightning up there, and then it's going to crest right over the Northeast. So those of you in the Northeast, prepare for it. We're going to be dealing with rain, your work commute, all sorts of stuff, basically beginning, let's say, the Carolinas. I'm going to say the 13th. We got Illinois, Michigan's involved in there. And then by the 14th, or actually by the end of the 13th for that matter, is when this thing's going to move up and start rolling up into the Northeast, still stretching down all the way to North Carolina and Virginia and West Virginia. So with that said, that's what we need to look out for the next couple days as far as the U.S. goes. Now, on to the next thing. What you are looking at here is Cyclone Vayu, which is actually technically right now a Category 2 storm. Once we move into the 12th, this is India, by the way. This is going to definitely hit the coast of western India. We've been talking about India a lot lately with the heat warnings going on and record-breaking heat. I believe they've reached 130 degrees almost 2 days in a row in India, but this is western India. This is certainly a cyclone, and you can see right here that we just saw the 108 right there. When you match that to the Saffir-Simpson scale, that is equivalent to a Category 2 storm. That is before we even hit. Sorry about that. Let's get back to this screen here. That is even before we make landfall. So right now we're on the 12th, which would be tomorrow. Yes, that would be tomorrow. We're seeing, where is that again? Let's find it. We did see it. There it is, 109 miles an hour. So basically by the 12th, we are 2 miles an hour away from this being a Category 3 storm. Me and Norway Tracking were talking about this, and he pretty much called this one dead on, that this was going to rapidly intensify as it reached this area. Now, as far as the spaghetti plots go, there's still a lot of them that are saying that this thing is going to hook off into the east as opposed to hitting land and then going up into northern India. That's hard to say at this point because when you look at sites like Ventu Sky, especially the GFS version, as we move into the 13th, you could see it kind of rides the coast. It does make landfall, but half in the ocean, half out of the ocean. You never want to see that because that's a fuel source that continues to keep the storm strong. And then as we move into the 14th, it kind of hooks around again, still not going inland like a lot of the spaghetti plots are showing. In fact, a lot of them are leaning towards it, moving this way. But then when you hit the 15th, it looks like that's when, actually between the 14th and 15th, it doesn't really move much at all, which is actually not good at all. That is not a good situation to have 24 hours of a storm of this magnitude just sitting here and battering the coast of this part of the country. Now, by the 16th, you will see a little bit of movement. The 17th, they're showing it starting to backtrack back into the same spot it hit to begin with. So you can see how a lot of these spaghetti plots and the different charts have all these different ideas, and in the end they have this thing kind of coming up, curling back around, and then back into India. And then when you look at the spaghetti plots, that is part of what they say. So some of them show it coming up this way, doing a U-turn and then coming back, or it shows it coming up, getting very strong, and then continuing westward. So again, it's something we just got to keep an eye on and watch And wow, we're already past 20 minutes on this video. I'll wrap this one up for you. Basically, I wanted to get out a lot of information at once in a video without getting a 5-hour live stream out there. So for those of you in Southern California, I'm sure you are very much aware of what's going on. When earthquakes start affecting the streets and you see oil rising from the ground, you can assume that there's an issue going on. Now, that's not me saying it. That's in news articles. These are scientists talking about this situation being, this is something that hasn't happened in decades, they're saying. Decades. This amount of activity in Southern California is really scaring people. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm relaying information to you, but it's caused a lot of videos to be posted out there saying, prepare for the big one. The big one's coming. Guys, we've been hearing this for years, but you know, to add a little detail to that, we have not seen a situation like this in a long time, where we get a lot of these compacted earthquakes, including the area of Oklahoma here. Again, guys, you got to remember, this is all within a 7-day period. This swarm up here, we had a big swarm to the east of California in Nevada. And there's still quarry blasting down in Southern California. I don't know how you can, like, logically use explosions in areas where there's an uptick in earthquakes and feel safe about it. So that's something for maybe someone else to answer. I'm not really, you know, up to date on why they're blasting, you know, bombs while there's an uptick in earthquakes in an area where you don't usually see this amount going on at once. So I'm going to wrap this up now, guys, but we certainly have a lot to look out for. This area here is leading me to believe that the New Madrid fault line is acting up. We need to keep an eye on that. We need to keep an eye on the San Andreas fault line, and we cannot forget this area here. This area here has been predicted by a lot of earthquake forecasters to be where the big one's going to come from if it doesn't happen on land itself. So basically, that's the information I have for you for right now. On top of that, the scorching heat going on. I mean, we are entering mid-June, so it's not that out of the realm of possibility to see these temperatures. But dealing with the heat and the earthquakes and, you know, all this stuff going on, it's just, you know, it's one thing after another. So with that said, guys, that's what I got for you for now. I didn't want to drag this on too long. I know I've been doing that lately. I'm trying to stick to one topic at a time. It's just so hard when there's so much going on in the world. And, you know, we do what we can. So I made this a video rather than a live stream. And with that said, guys, Northeast, get ready for some rain. And I think we are good. Guys, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate you sticking with me on those live streams. I know they can get a little off track sometimes, but we're learning as we go. And we're trying to get better at it. And I hope that it's not deterring you guys from the channel. It's, you know, we got to learn on the fly here. In fact, it actually helps learning on the fly rather than sitting here and studying stuff. And then, you know, I'd rather get help from people that are willing to offer their opinions or their knowledge in certain areas where I don't have that knowledge. But we certainly have a cyclone going on to the west coast of India that is certainly going to do a number on it, whether it hooks to the west or not. That's going to be a big issue for them, especially after dealing with the heat. We got the earthquakes in California, and then we have this going on. So we have a lot to look out for, guys. In fact, I want to bring this one shot back up really quick if we can get it. Actually, no, it's on this one. We'll take a look at this one more time. Just take a look at this visual, guys. This is crazy. Look at that. These are individual meteors that were captured either going behind the sun, in front of the sun, but it is not every day you get to see visuals like this with these satellites out there. So I wanted to share that with you guys. All right, that's it for me for tonight. I hope you enjoyed the video. We will talk again tomorrow. And everyone, be well, have a plan, stay safe, especially in Southern California. Please make sure you have a plan. It's very important. That's all I can say. And the video I posted before this about that email going around, please be aware of that email. If you get a email from YouTube asking for your password, delete it. Don't reply to it. Please get rid of it as soon as possible. It is a hack job. A lot of people have been posting about it today specifically. I saw one person mention that they got it last week, so it could be an ongoing situation. But hopefully YouTube can get a handle on it and end it before people continue to fill out that information and lose their channels or get their passwords stolen. So that is very important. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time, and we will be back tomorrow with another update. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.